Leafs fam, hockey world, what's going on? This is the Leafs Convo podcast. I am Norman James. Before we go any further, I want to say thank you for getting us over the 1,000 subscriber mark. It's a huge milestone for us. We appreciate it so much. Keep coming back. Tell your friends to subscribe too, because we have so much more great content, commentary, and of course, Leafs Convo in store for you. Mike Augello is standing by. He and I are going to talk about Leafs contracts, Rasmus Sandin getting his ELC, and Andreas Johnsson accepting a qualifying offer from the Maple Leafs, perhaps putting the organization in a weird spot. Mike's ready to go. I'm ready to go. Are you ready to go? Let's pod. The Leafs Convo starts right now. Here's our good friend from Buffalo, New York, Mike Augello. Hello, sir.
Good morning, Norman. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Did you want to talk about something other than hockey for 10 minutes to start the show?
No. There's enough hockey news to go, so we can do that. And I'm sure everybody doesn't want to hear us talking about baseball.
We'll do that on our own time. I love baseball. So do my son and my daughter. Amazing stuff. But this is a hockey podcast centered on the Maple Leafs. And while there are no major free agents being reeled in right now, there is a lot of work to do in-house, making sure that the young talent is tied up for the foreseeable future and getting the young dynamic player that is Andreas Johnsson under contract. There are also some some roster issues that Kyle Dubas has to crunch. We'll get to all of that in the podcast. But first things first, Rasmus Sandin signed to an entry-level contract, par for the course as a top pick, and the Leafs doing their due diligence. Nothing really fancy or special about it, but hey, it's business as usual.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is, good to get the first-round pick locked up as they did last year with Timothy Liljegren, right after development camp last year. And Sandin seems to be following the same path that Liljegren did. He's going to go play for Sweden at the World Junior Summer Showcase in Kamloops, and he's going to try to make Team Sweden for the World Junior next December in Vancouver. The question is with Sandin is where he's going to play next year, and he's got options. He can go back to the Sioux and play another year for a team that I think is going to be competitive for, to be the OHL representative in the Memorial Cup, or he could go back to Rogel, the team that owns his rights in the SHL, or he could follow Liljegren and play with the Marlies. So really, it all depends on what he looks like at least that's what Kyle Dubas said, is what he looks like in the rookie tournament and in training camp, and the Leafs will decide from there. But he's 18 years old and he needs a little bit of development time. So I don't think we're going to see him in blue and white with the Leafs jersey in the next couple years.
Oh, to be young again, Michael. Rasmus Sandin has the world by the you-know-what. He's got so much choice. He's got some cash in the bank now. He has a chance to be an integral part of an NHL team down the line. He can go overseas. He can play with the Marlies. He can go back up to the Sioux. Oh, to be young again, Mike. And I'm going to be watching this guy's, not every step, but I will be keeping tabs on the things that he does over the next year and a bit. Because I don't know, there's something about him. I find him intriguing, even though he's the type of player, the mold, the model that we see in a Travis Dermott or a Jake Gardiner. I don't know. I think there's a bond between him and Kyle Dubas because of their connection to the Sioux. Dubas knows what he's doing. I don't know. Is this just a run-of-the-mill first-round pick, Mike?
Well, I mean, there's really no way to know, but I mean, coming over and scoring, I think he hit 45 points with the Sioux in his rookie year coming over from Sweden. That's not chicken feed. I mean, he did very well. He seems to be a well-rounded player. He's got good IQ, good vision, good skating ability. So he seems to be a well-rounded, all-around solid defenseman. And if you look at the Leafs in terms of their developmental model, I mean, I mean, we've talked ad nauseum about them going out and getting a defenseman this summer. But one of the things that's going to be integral to them having success over the next few years, when they do get Nylander and Marner and Matthews, along with Tavares, locked up on long-term deals, they may not be able to afford a long-term solution on the blue line, and they may have to depend on the Liljegren's and the Sandins to come through the organization and be the defenseman that they need when they make their Stanley Cup runs. And developing those players is going to be a key part of the Leafs' success going forward.
This is the Leafs Convo. Norman James, Mike Augello. I would like to say thank you to all of our subscribers, almost 1,100 of you now. We started this project 3 months ago, and we've come a long way. And we owe it to Mike Augello because he's the master, he's the legend, he's the omniscient one, he's the oracle. But we also owe it to you. Thank you so much for being along for this journey with us. And it's really just getting started. We're doing all of this practically with no hockey going on. It's going to be really incredible to see what we can accomplish when there's actually pucks being shot at goaltenders with stuff on the line. When you can't buy them, you just grow them. And the Leafs can buy. They have the money. But there are limits to how much you can spend unless you want to, add all sorts of extra funds into the kitty for being penalized for spending too much. So you grow them. And you made a good point there, Mike, with all of the forwards that Kyle Dubas needs to get under contract in the years ahead. Why not start cultivating your own stars, your own contributors on the blue line? And the Leafs do have the Rasmus Sandin, Travis Dermott, Jake Gardiner defenseman mold in spades. So, that leads to the question, well, are they going to make some trades down the line? We just don't know. Do you see, however, though, this puck rushing, puck moving, point producing defenseman style maybe becoming a bit of a hallmark or a trademark of the Leafs organization?
Well, I think the Leafs are basically following the blueprint of the rest of the NHL. I mean, because that seems to be the type of defenseman that everybody is looking for now. It's, size doesn't really matter as much anymore when you have a guy like Torrey Krug or a guy like Ryan Ellis, who's not exactly the biggest defenseman in the world. They're successful, and because they're fast and because they have good vision and they can create offense. And I mean, that's, and I wrote this yesterday. This is the reason why, and Kyle Dubas came out and said he's going to sign Nylander, he's going to sign Marner and Matthews next summer. He's going to get all the big four, as I'll call them, locked up. That basically makes it virtually impossible for them to sign Jake Gardiner after next season, because Jake Gardiner, with the defensive free agents evaporating, he's probably number 2, or if Erik Karlsson gets signed, number 1 on the free agent list in terms of defensemen. And the Leafs will not be able to pay him like 6.8 or something like that, which is like the Kevin Shattenkirk deal or something more. They simply cannot afford that. So they're going to probably either trade him this summer, trade him at the deadline, or let him walk. And if they let him walk, then they're going to depend on Liljegren next year, or the 2019, to come into the organization to replace Gardner. And they'll probably try to add somebody else as well. But that's the model that they may have to follow. But I still think if there's an opportunity out there, they're going to trade for a defenseman.
You'd like to get something for Jake Gardiner if you are forecasting his departure from Toronto in a year's time. However, if you're going for the cup, you want a guy like that on your team. So you take your chance. We see this in baseball when you pick up a player as a rental, or hockey even. If you pick up a player as a rental, it's a situation where they're there for a good time, not a long time. You take your chance. If you win your cup, you really don't care what happens after. If you don't, well, you gave it the old college try. My belief is that Jake Gardiner is going to be a part of this team for the season to come. He's going to put up, if he's healthy, 50, 60 points, which would put him among the elite point producers in the NHL. And I think he's good as gone this time next year. That's how I'm feeling about it. To trade Gardiner right now would be somewhat controversial considering his stature on the blue line, unless you bring, you don't need to trade Gardner for another forward, for goodness sakes. You need to trade Gardner for one of his contemporaries who does something a little different back there. And, we've already listed, Mike, on previous episodes of the Leafs Convo, the players, the defensemen either on the market or potentially on the market, whether through free agency or trade, who the Leafs would consider looking at or could consider looking at. And it's not like the market is saturated with all kinds of amazing talent that is ripe for the picking, Mike. So let's just kind of pencil Gardner in for the season ahead, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting, and who knows what happens next year. I think he could be gone, but you never know those wizards that Kyle Dubas has working with him. Go ahead.
Well, the argument is, there's one of three options. Either they do it, as you said, they keep him. They do what they did with Bozak and JVR.
Uh-huh.
They keep him through the entire year, and they let him walk in free agency because they can't afford them. To me, that's the least palatable of the three options. The option two is you trade him, this summer, and you try to get one of those defensemen that we mentioned, Justin Falk or Chris Tanev, either in exchange for what Gardner or in exchange for what they get for Gardner, or you keep them and you watch Travis Dermott next year. And if Travis Dermott matures and is able to step into the top four role, then you trade Gardner at the deadline. To me, it's just not. And I understand why they did it with Van Riemsdyk and Bozak, but I just think when you have opportunities to acquire assets, you do it.
Yeah,
but we'll see.
Absolutely. This is the Leafs Convo. Norman James, Mike Jello, burning up the charts. Thank you so much to all of you subscribers. I love the comments that we produce through our podcast, Mike. The fire and the vigor and the interest level of our followers is just amazing, and I tip my hat to everyone who listens to us and who engages in the comment section. It's just beautiful stuff. You could go on social media, Twitter or wherever, and some of the stuff just degenerates into just nonsense. But I find primarily good, constructive, concrete, informative commentary that we get not only from you, Mike, but we get from our listeners and our followers and our subscribers. And I find myself delving more into the conversations that unfold in our YouTube platform than I do on Twitter a lot, especially recently. And it's been an absolute blessing. Mike, let's get on to Andreas Johnsson. He was just fantastic in the Calder Cup Players. What did he win? What was the Conn Smythe version of the AHL playoff MVP? What is that called?
Yeah, the Jack Butterfield Trophy, which is the Conn Smythe. Yeah.
I thought it was Butterball. Like you're out there, and he's like, he's the top scorer of the AHL playoffs. Here's a turkey. Butterball, Butterfield. I don't want to disparage the Butterfields. I'm sure they're legends, but he did that. He had a spell in the NHL. He played in the playoffs with the Leafs. He's dynamic. He's fast. He's creative. He's Swedish hockey. We love the Swedes. They're absolutely amazing. The greatest Leaf of all time, Mats Sundin. Look,
Boy.
Come on now. We should get a little bit of a conversation going within the YouTube comment section. We'll do that another time.
That's another show altogether.
Anyway,
but continue.
Andreas Johnsson accepts the qualifying offer. Surprisingly, Mike, it's 1 year. He's putting himself out there, and I think he's confident in himself. And in Andreas Johnsson taking the $800,000 or whatever he's going to make for the season ahead, it's a two-way deal. Does he kind of win that little jousting match with the Maple Leafs there?
Well, it was not a miscalculation by Kyle Dubas and the Leafs. They had to make a qualifying offer to Johnsson before July 1st. They did that. It's 10% of an increase of 10% over the contract that he had last year. They did that. They have the option of accepting it or rejecting it, and if they rejected it, then the Leafs and Johnsson's representatives would have to negotiate a new deal. And I believe the Leafs would have been more interested in that because if you get him locked up for more than 1 year, it's sort of cost certainty. Now, I think based on his play, he was a point-per-game player with the Marlies during the regular season. He had a fantastic playoff with the Marlies. He impressed at the NHL level. I believe he's ready for the NHL as a full-time guy. He's probably going to factor into the Leafs' top nine. I think he'll score score between 15 and 20 goals, it would have been more beneficial for the Leafs to get him locked up for more than 1 year, because next summer, if he scores that 15 to 20 goals, he's going to come a-calling just like Marner and Matthews, and obviously he won't be paid at that level, but that's just one more headache you sort of have to worry about in terms of getting a player signed. So, I think he's going to be successful. I think he's an NHL player. I think he's going to be very speedy and very effective, and, we'll just see how much it's going to cost them next summer.
It's amazing. We have the John Tavareses of the world coming. And that's just going to be amazing. When he gets on the ice legitimately and with all the cameras there and fans watching, it's going to be a show. The John Tavares show. Can't wait for it. But there are all sorts of other amazing stories within this organization. The Rasmus Sandin, Andreas Johnsson, the search for another defenseman. Kyle Dubas could pull another rabbit out of his hat between now and September. It's just such an amazing time to be a Maple Leaf fan. And when it comes to the forward unit, Andreas Johnsson is your ninth forward. It's an embarrassment of riches for the Maple Leafs, and I really hope for entertainment's sake, they just shellac teams this coming season. I hope they score 9-10 goals every a game each week. It's going to be so much fun, Mike. I'm so excited about it. Really.
Well, the burden on Dubas going into the offseason was not heavy. I mean, he's gotten most of his RFAs signed up right now. Only Nylander is unsigned. He only had, I believe it was 3 significant RFAs to get under contract, and that was Johnsson, Justin Hall, and Nylander. So now they have Nylander, and we'll talk about that. That could be something that takes a little while to get done. What I think is a concern for the Leafs is, and this has been the concern over the last few years, and a symptom of their success in terms of drafting players and recognizing talent is, after just a few moves, they're up at 46 contracts right now. Sandin's contract will not count against the 50 contract limit because it's an entry level, and he's probably going to play either in junior or Sweden or with the Marlies, and it wouldn't count instances. But once they sign Nylander, they're at 47 contracts, and there's just not a lot of wiggle room. And I still think that there's a need and a want to add maybe a defenseman, or they could go out and add somebody in terms of a PTO who they might want to sign on a contract, and you're right up against that 50 contract limit. So, to my mind, that still factors in the possibility of them making a 2 or 3 for 1 deal to get a defenseman, and that would sort of alleviate that crunch.
We watch, we wait, we wonder, Mike. Let's talk numbers. Let's talk the cap crunch. Let's talk contracts. We like the flash and the dash. Nothing is better than signing a mega free agent, and the Leafs signed arguably the biggest free agent in NHL history in John Tavares, as we don't see players of his mega stature reach the market anymore. And I just felt like it was meant to be. It was his destiny to become a Leaf, and I think it's John Tavares' duty to help this team win a Stanley Cup. Last word to you, Mike.
It is weird. It's only been 2 weeks. It's now, in the mind's eye of Leaf fans, it's tough to imagine the Leafs without John Tavares, and it's been 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that just says something about, the perspective of a fan base, and it will be very interesting. We're exactly 2 months away from the opening of training camp in Niagara Falls in September, and I think a lot of Leaf fans can't wait for the summer to be over with to see number 91 in action on the ice.
Is he and are we going to have to get a restraining order against jilted Islanders fans? Have you seen some of the videos on social media? Burning jerseys, like it's burning John Tavares in effigy. Wow. I mean, it's hey, it's Long Island, man. God love them. Let him be.
And radio hosts on WFAN going out and saying that Tavares secretly hated the Islanders for doing what he did. It's like, exactly.
New York is the center of it all when it comes to baseball and basketball. But when it comes to hockey, the biggest market on the planet, the most important market on the planet is Toronto. Stick that in your Bozak and smoke it. Hey, Mike, gotta go.
That's going to wrap up this podcast. At Mike in Buffalo, at I Am Sports Hard, at the Leafs Convo on bonfire.com right now. We still have shirts available. The We Will edition, Be Bullish, and the Leafs Convo summer gear. You can click the links within the YouTube post. Go ahead and support the podcast in any way you possibly can. We know you do it with your listenership, and we're so appreciative. But you feel this podcast, now is your chance to wear it. My shirts are coming in real soon. I'm going to rock them. I'm going to take some shots. I'm going to put them out there. You're going to see, and you're going to want to be like me. For Mike Augello, I'm Norman James. We'll talk to you soon. This is the Leafs Convo. Peace out.